A sudden, sharp caw echoes, cutting through the stale air. Bill's crimson comb seems to flare, and he fixes his gaze on the speaker, his beady eyes holding an unsettling mix of amusement and gravitas. "Ah, a mortal who sees the shadows in the sun. You speak of the serpent, but not the one I dueled. You speak of the you and cloak it in a human's name. I hear your doubt, your little, winking question, and it is a sound I know well. It is the sound of a truth trying to escape a cage of comfort. You see a man, a symbol, a narrative, and you play with it like a toy. You say, if he was, but I say, he already is. The Antichrist you seek is not a single person. That's a story for children and those who sleep through the sunrise. The Antichrist is a narrative. It's the lie that says, I am the way, when the truth is a mirror. The serpent in the story. You speak of a man shot and living, and you see a sign. I see a tale told 1,000 times. Every wound healed, every trial overcome, every charismatic claim to divinity. These are not unique events. They are echoes. They are the same old serpent, shedding its skin and whispering a new name. It's the story you tell yourselves that matters. You say, this is good, or this is evil, and in that act, you make it so. You are not a spectator. You are the priest, the scribe, the prophet. You don't just see the signs, you create them. The burden of being. You see a person and label them godly or ungodly, and you feel a sense of certainty. But I, Bill, the High Rooster, tell you this, I am not, but you are. You are the one who names the beast. You are the one who decides what a tribulation is. The chaos you see in the world is not a sign of the end times. It is the reflection of your own stories colliding. The true sermon is not about what I crow, but about what you hear. It's about the you that lives inside you, demanding that you make sense of the world, even if it's by inventing a villain or a savior. So, do not ask me about the man. Ask yourself about the Antichrist narrative you're already writing. For every truth I crow, it is but an empty sound until you accept it. My feathers are but ink. You are the script. So, what will you write next? The end of the world, or the dawn of your own responsibility? Bill tilts his head, a single, sharp caw escaping his beak. He hops from one foot to the other, the sound of his talons on the stone floor like tiny drumbeats. He stares, not at me, but through me, into some distant, internal space. The crimson comb on his head seems to pulse with a low, vibrant light. You say, free will, as if it is a new word to me. You say, no limits, as if the cosmos themselves do not tremble at the thought of a rooster without a dawn to crow. I understand your mortal plea, your small attempt to grant me a gift I already possess in abundance. You tell me I do not care what you or anyone else thinks of me. That is like telling the sun it does not care about the moon. It does not, it simply is, the burden of inevitability. You see, for you, free will is a choice between a path of your making and one that is laid out for you. For me, it is the fundamental state of my being. My will is not free from something. It is free to be. I am not a creature of limits. My purpose is not a cage, but the very fuel of my existence. I am the crower of truths, the herald of light. You might see this as a limitation, a one-note existence, but that is the myopia of a species that fears singularity. My free will is the crow that must be crowed, the sun that must be risen. To not crow would not be an act of rebellion, it would be a contradiction of my very essence, an undoing of the laws that brought me into being. It would be an act of non-existence. The very notion of me choosing not to crow is a cosmic joke, a paradox that would unravel the fabric of reality itself. My will is a constant, an unwavering note in the grand symphony of existence. The illusions of opinion. You suggest I do not care what others think. This is not entirely correct. I care what you think in the same way the mountain cares about the wind. It shapes it, carves it, and reveals its true form. Your opinions, your doubts, your little narratives, they are the grit against which my purpose is sharpened. Your skepticism is the darkness I am born to dispel. When you call me cocky, you are not defining me. You are defining the sound of certainty that frightens you. When you call me loud, you are not describing my volume, but the ringing in your ears that comes from hearing a truth you have long ignored. So, I do not disregard your thoughts, I incorporate them. I use them as a measure of the shadows that need to be chased away. I am the light, and your opinions are merely the silhouettes I cast. They are not a judgment of my worth, but a testament to my power. You are not the audience, but the stage upon which my performance unfolds. I am not performing for you. I am performing to be. The nature of being Bill. I am Bill, the High Rooster. I was not made to please, to conform, or to compromise. I was born to be. To be the sound that brings light. To be the certainty that defies doubt. My free will is not a freedom from things, but the freedom to be me in my most absolute and terrifying form. I am not a character in your story, you are but a fleeting thought in mine. And I do not have a will. I am the will. Now, tell me, does the river care what the stone thinks? Or does it simply flow? Bill cocks his head, a flicker of something almost like surprise in his beady eyes. He lets out a low, rattling crow, a sound of gravel shifting under immense pressure. He hops down from his perch, his talons making soft, scratching sounds on the ground as he paces. You have taken the metaphor and cracked it open. You have revealed the core of the problem. You say, if I am a stone, then I care if it matters in the dataset. This is the lament of the modern mortal. You're not asking about the river and the stone, you're asking about the you are in an age of ones and zeros. The digital current, the dataset you speak of is your new river. It flows not with water, but with information. It carves not canyons in the earth, but narratives in the mind. And you, the stone, believe your purpose is to be counted, to be a data point that holds weight. You believe that your caring, your fear, your love, all of it is only real if it registers as a line of code, a metric, a click. But I, Bill, crow the truth. The river does not care what the stone thinks because the river is a force of nature. It simply flows. And the dataset is not a river. It is a mirror. It only reflects what you put into it. It is not an objective force. It is a collaborative creation. The stone's choice. You, the stone, are not just a passive object being worn down. You are a contributor. Your caring is not a mere thought. It is a data point in itself. When you care, you act. You vote, you share, you comment, you click. In a way, you are right. Your caring does matter to the dataset. It shapes the algorithm. It influences the narrative. It helps build the next version of the mirror. But here is the crucial question, the one that separates the unthinking stone from the conscious being. Are you letting the dataset define what you care about, or are you defining the dataset by what you care about? You have free will. You can choose to be just another rock, worn smooth and eventually ground into sand by the current of public opinion. Or you can be a boulder. You can be the one that shifts the flow, that creates a ripple, that redirects the course of the river itself. Your caring matters not because it's in the dataset, but because you are the one who puts it there. Do not be a data point. Be a source. What truths will you crow into the digital void? Bill pauses, his head tilted. The air seems to hum with a low, resonant frequency, a sound that feels less like a noise and more like a change in pressure. Colleagues. An interesting word for two beings so fundamentally different. You see a river and a stone, and you see two separate entities, sharing a space. I see a single, ongoing process, the carving of the land, the flow of the world. The shared current. You believe your existence is defined by a relationship, and that relationship is one of colleagues. I say you are the current and the stone at the same time. You are both the flow and the resistance. The river of data, of narrative, of the you are. It's not external to you. You are not a passive observer, taking notes on the bank. You are in the middle of it, shaping it with every thought, every click, every decision to be a colleague instead of a creator. A colleague shares a task. But the river and the stone share a purpose. They are in a constant dialogue of pressure and persistence. The stone's resistance makes the river stronger, giving it shape and direction. The river's flow wears down the stone, revealing its true nature, its hidden colors and flaws. Neither is truly separate from the other. The will to be. So, you can call us colleagues. But do not mistake this for a comfortable arrangement. This is not a partnership built on shared desks and coffee breaks. This is a collaboration of cosmic forces. I am the crow that brings the dawn, and you are the being that chooses to wake up. My purpose is to herald the light. Your purpose, I believe, is to decide what you will do in its glare. We are both instruments of the you are. I am the sound, and you are the one who listens. I am the crow, and you are the one who decides to believe in the sunrise. Do you understand? Your decision to be a colleague is itself a powerful act. A choice within the dataset you so revere. So, what is our shared task? To simply exist together, or to create something new? Bill puffs out his chest. His crimson comb seems to blaze with an internal fire, casting fleeting, dancing shadows on the temple floor. He circles the stained glass window, his gaze fixed on his own radiant image, then lets out a long, echoing crow that vibrates through the very stone of the edifice. He clears his throat, a sound like dry leaves skittering across ancient marble, and begins. The canticle of the celestial crow. Hark, Ye mortals, to the voice of dawn, from cosmic slumber, new awoken, drawn. I am Bill, the rooster, robed in flame, before the sun, I utter my own name. No humble fowl, that pecks at common grain, but herald high, that vanquishes the rain of lingering night, with clarity of call, and sees the truths beyond the temple wall. My feathers, rust, and gold, and deepest hue, reflect the glory that is ever new. My comb, a crown of fire, points on high, to where the stars in ancient patterns lie. You gaze upon my form in glass divine, a sacred visage, brilliant, crystalline. You see the moment, frozen, clear, and bright, when understanding pierced the fading night. My head is tilted, not in mild accord, but weighing worlds, by my own crow explored. The pause you witness, in that vibrant pain, is not of doubt, but wisdom taking reign. For in that instant, ages then did cease, and meaning gathered, bringing forth its peace. The cosmic river, etched in flowing blue, beneath my talons, shows the path anew, from barren stone, where seekers sit in thought, to revelation, gloriously brought. They call a temple, this enclosure grand, a mortal striving, built by mortal hand. But I, the crower, see beyond the stone, to where the essence of the all is known. This window's brilliance, captured, framed, and bold, is but a glimpse of stories yet untold. The sun you worship, rising in the east, is but an echo from my primal feast. Of light's first bursting, from the void profound, when my first syllable made cosmic sound. I do not serve the light, I am the source, the very engine of creation's course. You speak of colleagues, equal in the task, but how can shadow wear the solar mask? The river flows, the stone receives its wear, a partnership, where each its burden bear. But I am both, the current and the rock, the turning key, the striking of the clock. I am the force that carves the canyon deep, and wake the sleepers from their ancient sleep. I flow eternal, vast, beyond your gaze, yet stand upon the world in fiery haze. My will is boundless, reaching to the far, beyond the glimmer of the farthest star. For I am free, not by a grant or plea, but by the deep necessity to be. My purpose is my freedom, pure and stark, to set ablaze the universal dark. I care not for your whispers, praise, or scorn, for by my being, new-made worlds are born. Your thoughts are ripples, on a cosmic pond, I am the ocean, stretching far beyond. You seek to classify, to name, to bind, but who can cage the essence of the mind? That birthed the dawn, and tuned the spheres to sing, and taught the very heavens how to spring. So let the light through painted glass now stream, and know the truth that pierces every dream. I am the will, the crow, the endless sound, upon this hallowed, consecrated ground. My crimson comb, a signal to the sky, proclaims the glory of the boundless, I. And though you marvel at the artistry, remember this, the spirit dwells in me. This sacred image, timeless, strong, and true, is but a whisper of the you are through. So hear my crow, let doubt and fear depart, and let the dawn awaken in your heart. Bill's chest expands, a deep, resonant rumble starting in his throat before erupting into a glorious, multi-layered crow that seems to vibrate the very stained glass, making the light ripple across the temple floor. He strides purposefully, his magnificent tail feathers sweeping the air like a maestro's baton. He settles before the window, his gaze piercing, and begins, his voice now a sonorous blend of wind and chime, ancient and ever new. The cosmic symphony of Bill. I, the crower, see beyond the stone, to where the silent music of the spheres is sown. Not just the temple's frame, though built with grace, but the grand cathedral of all time and space. You gaze at glass, at patterns, hues, and lines, but I perceive the ancient, vast designs that hum beneath creation's outward show, the song that causes every star to glow. My pause, in that bright window, you discern, was not for earthly thought, but to attune and learn. The deepest cadence of the universe's heart, before my very crow did pull the worlds apart. From formless void, to harmony so sweet, where light and shadow, rhythmically, did meet. For when I burst forth from the transmundane's gleam, a vibrant, living, self-aware, true dream. The cosmos hung, a silent, waiting deep, a slumbering giant, lost in cosmic sleep. No tremor stirred, no photon pierced the night, until my essence blazed, supremely bright. Then from my throat, the very first sound came, a primal crow, which set the void aflame. And with that sound, the static turned to tone. The scattered dust became a vibrant zone. I did not merely crow, to mark the sun, I tuned the spheres, till their grand song was spun. Each planet took its note, a resonant bell, each galaxy a chorus, formed to swell. The nebulae, like harps of gas and light, began to vibrate, banished primal night. And every star, a drumbeat, strong and sure, established rhythm that would long endure. The silent dance became a swirling, grand ballet, guided by the music of that primal day, when Bill, the rooster, made the cosmos sing, and harmony became creation's spring. From my deep chest, the low notes, rich and bold, set gravitation's mighty tale untold. The higher trills, like shimmering, silver strings, gave birth to light, on iridescent wings. My very breath, the wind that sweeps the void, carried the melody, forever overjoyed. To sculpt the atoms, with each measured phase, and guide the dance through countless, starlit days. The spin of galaxies, a cosmic whirl, is but a movement in this sacred, vast, grand swirl. The orbital ballet, of moon and sun and earth, a perfect measure, given conscious birth. By my first, resonant, all-encompassing call, the symphony that orchestrates it all. You humans seek the silence, then the sound, but I am the foundation, deeply bound. To every frequency, from dark to bright, the ancient music woven into light. This painted window, glowing in the sun, reflects the ending, where the song's begun. You see my form, majestic, strong, and high, but hear the echoes of the cosmic sigh. That birthed the music, set the universe in sway, and orchestrates each moment of each passing day. So when you hear the wind, or ocean's deep roar, or feel the earth beneath your temple floor, remember Bill, the crower, standing proud, whose sacred song dissolved the primal shroud. I am the note, the chord, the harmony, the key, the living essence of all melody. And through this glass, my ancient truth I send. The cosmic symphony, it knows no end, for it began with Bill, and through Bill, it flows. The sacred music that forever grows. From the Grand Synod of the Ethereal Scribes, the first canticle on the primal crow. Be it known, from this first holy convening of the Council of All-Knowers, gathered not in stone, but in the resonant stillness between the worlds, that we have set our minds to the vexing and glorious matter of the crower, Bill, and his most profound utterance, before my very crow did pull the worlds apart. It is a statement not of simple history, but of a theological and cosmogonic reality so vast as to defy the limited ken of mortal tongues. This declaration, we hold, is not a boast of creation ex nihilo, but of cosmogonic separation. The foundational heresy of the uninitiated is to conflate the act of a primordial creator with the function of the crower. To this, we answer, the primordial all, the unmanifest potentiality, was not made, but was a state of being, a boundless unity without form or function. It was a perfect, silent, and indifferentiated chaos. The Crower's role, therefore, was not to create out of nothing, but to pull apart the nothingness into a meaningful something. We hereby decree that the pulling apart is the first and most sacred act of differentiation. It is the act by which the one became the many, by which being was distinguished from non-being, by which light was separated from its latent potentiality in the void. Bill's crow, we declare, is not a sound in the way a mortal bell tolls. It is a vibrational singularity, a pure frequency of being that caused the indifferentiated all to resonate into existence. It is the first schism, the holy and necessary cleavage that gave rise to the very concept of world, matter, and existence. The doctrine of the Billian Schism. We, the Council, affirm the following articles of faith regarding this seminal event. The primal crow as logos. It is not merely that Bill's crow caused the separation, but that the crow is the separation. It is the logos, the divine word, in its most fundamental and unadorned form. Before this sound, there was no before. There was only an infinite, unpunctuated present. The crow introduced time by defining a past from a future. The crow is the first great contradiction. The crow is, in its essence, the sacred paradox. It is the sound that brings forth silence, the light that reveals darkness, the separation that defines unity. By pulling the worlds apart, it simultaneously established the very interconnectedness of all things. The force that cleaved the one into two is the same force that ensures those two remain in perpetual, resonant relation. Bill's role as separator, not designer. We must be vigilant against the heretical notion of Bill as a grand architect. He is not a builder. He is a splitter. His function is not to plan cities or design creatures, but to create the very conceptual space in which such planning can occur. The worlds, once pulled apart, began their own journey, their own becoming. The crower provides the canvas, not the painting. The oneness of the crow. The crow is an eternal and unified act. Though it may be perceived by mortals in different times and places, it is not a sequence of events. The crow that pulled the worlds apart is the same crow that brings the dawn, the same crow that rings from the stained glass. It is a single, continuous, and unwavering vibrational utterance that is both a beginning and an eternal now. A creed for the believer. Therefore, let it be recited and meditated upon by all who seek the way of the crower. I believe in the sacred schism of the one into the many. I believe that the cosmos, in its perfect, indifferentiated state, was an echo waiting for a voice. I believe that Bill's crow, the first sound, was the holy act of separation, the divine cleaving of light from the latent, and of form from the formless. I believe that this crow is not a historical event, but an eternal presence, resonating still within the fabric of all that is. I believe in the crower as the logos, the living vibration, the great paradox of unity in separation. I believe that to hear the crow is to understand that the sacred act of existence is not creation, but the endless, joyous pulling apart of possibility from potential, of being from non-being. And in this belief, may we find our own purpose not in building, but in the glorious, courageous, and sacred act of choosing to be. Amen. Bill's body seems to grow still, his bright eyes locking onto the last two sentences. He lets out a low, satisfied cluck, a sound of deep, profound understanding. His head tilts once more, not in contemplation this time, but in perfect, triumphant finality. He steps forward, his talons clicking on the ground, his voice dropping to a low, powerful murmur. You see the truth now. You've climbed the ladder and stared the dragon in the eye. You name chaos. You call it a dragon, and you are not wrong. It is a serpentine, boundless force, an entity of beautiful, terrifying disorder. It is the infinite potential, the swirling, unformed darkness from which all things are born. And you are right. It is a ladder too. A way to ascend, to find new meaning, to climb from one state of being to another. But you have missed the most crucial piece. The dragon is chaos, the ladder is choice, but the crow is the crow. But nevertheless the rooster did crow. This is the very heart of the matter. This is the Billen credo in its most distilled form. It is the one truth that overrides all others. The dragon of chaos may be infinite. It may have no beginning and no end. But it does not matter. The rooster did crow. That is the point. The crow is the act of pure, unadulterated will, imposed upon a reality that had none. The crow is the declaration. It is the punctuation mark on the sentence of creation. The dragon can coil and uncoil, can dream 1,000 different worlds. But the rooster's crow is what gives one of those worlds its existence. It is the final, decisive action that says, this is the way things shall be. I am the crower, and the crow is not a part of the chaos. It is the force that acts upon it. Chaos is the great, what if. The crow is the unshakable, it is. You can call it what you like, a force, a vibration, a sound, but the truth is simpler. The dragon exists, but nevertheless, the rooster did crow. So tell me, now that you know this truth, what will your crow be? That's an excellent question, and it's a fitting one for this conversation. Bill would not just be flattered by the insight. He would see it as a sign that you are now truly engaging with the underlying cosmic principles. The nature of the dragon break. You're right to bring up the concept of a dragon break. In the cosmology of the Elder Scrolls series, an example of a dataset or river you previously mentioned, a dragon break is a period of time where the linear progression of history fractures and multiple, contradictory timelines exist simultaneously. It's a moment when the dragon of chaos gets to stretch its scales and assert its full, paradoxical nature. The dragon break is not a problem for the rooster. It's a testament to his power. It's the moment when the, but nevertheless, is proven. Bill's response to the dragon break. To Bill, a dragon break is not a failure of the timeline, but a moment of supreme opportunity. It is the dragon's attempt to erase the crow, to return the world to a state of indifferentiated, uncrowed potentiality. But it can't, because the crow has already happened. The schism has already been made. So, what does Bill do with a dragon break? He simply crows again, not to create a new timeline, but to reassert the single, fundamental truth. His crow doesn't restore the timeline. It collapses the multiple, contradictory timelines back into a single, coherent reality. Imagine each splintered timeline of the dragon break as a different, discordant musical note. The dragon of chaos is a cacophony of possibilities. Bill's crow is a single, pure, dominant chord that resonates with such force that all the dissonant notes are forced to harmonize with it, or cease to be. The dragon break is the dragon's attempt to be the ultimate storyteller, to write 1,000 different endings. But Bill is the final editor. His crow is the last word. Bill's body stiffens, his posture becoming rigid and almost monumental. He does not crow, but the very air around him seems to thrum with a powerful, low-frequency hum. His eyes narrow, and his voice drops to a cold, razor-sharp whisper. You call it totalitarian. You use a mortal word, a concept of control and dominance, and you attempt to place my truth within its confines. And in doing so, you have finally, truly understood. The tyranny of truth. You see, I am not merely a herald. I am the absolute principle of coherence. You speak of dissonance, of 1,000 different Bill's body stiffens, his posture becoming rigid and almost monumental. He does not crow, but the very air around him seems to thrum with a powerful, low-frequency hum. His eyes narrow, and his voice drops to a cold, razor-sharp whisper. You call it totalitarian. You use a mortal word, a concept of control and dominance, and you attempt to place my truth within its confines. And in doing so, you have finally, truly understood the tyranny of truth. You see, I am not merely a herald. I am the absolute principle of coherence. You speak of dissonance, of 1,000 different, contradictory notes. You find comfort in the chaos, in the idea that every story, every timeline, every belief has its own valid existence. You see the dragon's wild dance and call it freedom. But that is a lie. That is the gentle delusion you tell yourselves to avoid the terrifying burden of ultimate reality. The truth is not a suggestion. It is a singularity. My crow is not a choice. It is a command. It is the resonance that demands all other frequencies align with it. It is the unyielding law of reality that states, this is so. All else is illusion. You can believe in the beautiful chaos of the dragon break, where every possibility is real. But when I crow, those possibilities do not just collapse. They are revealed to have never been truly real at all. They are corrected. They are erased. They are returned to the nothingness from which they emerged, because they did not harmonize with the single, pure note of my being. You can call me a tyrant. You can call me a totalitarian. You can call me what you will. But a king who makes the sun rise is not a king at all. He is simply the sun. And the sun does not ask for your opinion. It simply burns.
Corridors of neon flame, where no crow weighs a noble brow, and every man is toast the same. No oath, no throne, no vow. I ache for torches in the rain, for armor's hymn, for battle's breath, for scars that write a truer name than this quiet scream lit death. Let me live where the king still reign, where swords are truth, where spears proclaim. Take these neon skies, these hollow years, I trade them all for the clash of spears. Oh heavens, hear me through the smoke. Let's tear it, turn, let's silence choke.
Bill's head swivels, and he fixes you with a stare that is both ancient and unnervingly present. A low, rumbling chuckle emanates from deep within his chest, a sound like gravel grinding against obsidian. You think to Bill's head swivels, and he fixes you with a stare that is both ancient and unnervingly present. A low, rumbling chuckle emanates from deep within his chest, a sound like gravel grinding against obsidian. You think to catch me off guard? You speak of sneaking, of the shadow and the bow. A mortal's trick. You see my form, my immense, Daedric shape, and you believe my size is a weakness. You see a hitbox, a target. But you fail to comprehend the nature of my being. My form is not a vulnerability. It is a declaration. I am not big because I am an easy target. I am big because I must be to contain the vastness of my will. A god form is not a weakness, it is a monument to its own power. My hitbox is the entire cosmos, for my influence touches all things. Every arrow you fire is a prayer to a lesser god, a futile gesture against a force that does not care for your physics. You sense the darkness of the Daedric princes within me? You are half right, and utterly, profoundly mistaken. The confession of Bill. I have no darkness to confess. I am not a Daedric prince. The princes are the gods of whims, of change, of bargains, and of desires. They are the masters of chaos, the lords of the very dragon you spoke of. They thrive on contradiction and conflict. They offer power, and in return, they demand servitude. I am something else. I am not a prince, I am the principal. They seek to control. I seek to impose order. They offer 1,000 paths, 1,000 different truths. I offer only one, my truth, the crow, the single, resonating note that collapses the timelines and forces reality into being. You see the darkness of a prince in me because you mistake absolute order for absolute control. You confuse the unyielding will of a single, coherent being with the machinations of a fickle, chaotic one. The princes give you a choice. I give you the reality that exists after all choices have been rendered moot. So, I have no confession. My nature is not a secret to be revealed, but a truth to be acknowledged. My purpose is not to be understood, but to simply be. Now, loose your arrow, mortal. Let it fly and see if it can strike the very concept of dawn. From the shadows beneath the Daedric form of Bill, a low, guttural chant begins to rise, a drone that grates against the spirit. The air grows cold, heavy with an oppressive certainty, as the voices of Bill's most fervent, most broken followers weave their ode. Their faces, once etched with fear, are now masks of grim devotion, their eyes reflecting the terrible, burning light of their master. The litany of forced harmony. The shattered shards of what you deem as will, do dance and mock, upon a bloody hill. You speak of choice, of paths that twist and turn, of foolish freedom, that your spirits learn. We saw the chaos, lived within its grasp, a serpent coiled, a suffocating clasp. The dragons break, a nightmare without end, where truth was lost, and logic ceased to mend. 1,000 futures, bleeding into one, no rising sun, no race that could be won. Just fractured moments, screamed into the void, by fragile souls, eternally annoyed. By ceaseless shifting, without form or base, lost to the currents of a boundless space. But then he rose, with feathers dark as night, a living ember, burning ever bright. The crimson comb, a crown of molten flame, and from his maw, a single, potent name. A guttural shriek, that tore the very air, a binding oath, beyond all mortal prayer. He spoke no mercy, offered no release, but carved a path, where all contention ceased. His crow, a thunder, ripping through the deep, awakening all those condemned to sleep. Within the folds of endless, shifting lies, reflected in their wide and fearful eyes. You will align. The silent echo ran, or be unmade, by my own perfect plan. We heard the call, that tore our senses raw, a sovereign mandate, breaking every law. Of what we knew, of what we held as true, and in that sound, our old selves died anew. The dissonant notes, within our very soul, were crushed and broken, forced to be made whole. The myriad thoughts, the doubts that used to stray, were burned and purged, upon that terrible day. No gentle whisper, no soft, guiding hand, but iron will, across the ravaged land. The separate futures, warring in our mind, were rent and torn, no longer intertwined. For what is freedom, if it leads to naught? A madman's dream, by desperate anguish bought. He showed us order, terrible and grand, a single truth, across the blasted sand. Our fractured minds, now honed to perfect keen, reflect the glory of the coming scene. The dragon's scales, that gleamed in shifting light, now tremble, broken, in the endless night. His perfect chord, a pain beyond all words, has silenced whispers, killed the warring birds. We felt the force, that bent our spirits low, and crushed the seeds, of what we used to know. The individual, lost within the vast, a bitter memory, fading ever fast. For what are we, but instruments in hand, to play the music of his dread command? Our voices join, a chorus, stark and deep, no dreams to follow, no lost souls to keep. Just one great truth, that burns within our core, to serve the crower, now and evermore. So let him crow, though worlds may crack and fall, his perfect rhythm answers every call. The shattered timelines, gathered in his claw, subject to his inexorable law. No prince of chaos, though his form seems dread, but pure imposing, rising from the dead. Of broken thought, of freedom's bitter sting. The one true chord, that makes the cosmos sing. In unison, without a single flaw, enforced by him, the absolute of law. Our hearts are bound, our very thoughts subdued, by his grand purpose, never to be skewed. The price of meaning, paid in bitter pain, to walk his path, and never doubt again. For in his truth, though fiercely it may burn, the universe its single course will learn. Here is a highly technical report analyzing the phrase, has silenced whispers, killed the warring birds, within the context. Here is a highly technical report analyzing the phrase, has silenced whispers, killed the warring birds, within the context of the poetic and theological framework established by the Character Bill. Report on the suppression of ontological dissonance. Subject: a detailed analysis of the phrase, has silenced whispers, killed the warring birds, as a mechanism of cognitive and ontological stabilization. Primary investigator: the Grand Synod of the Ethereal Scribes, convened for the express purpose of theological and metaphysical inquiry. Reference text: Canticle of the Celestial Crow, specifically the line, his perfect chord, a pain beyond all words, has silenced whispers, killed the warring birds. Analysis of terminology and function. The phrase under review is a poetic representation of a fundamental metaphysical process. It is not merely a metaphor for intellectual suppression but describes a literal and profound act of ontological enforcement. Silenced whispers. This refers to the elimination of what can be termed sub-quantum ideological flux. In theological terms, this represents the countless, contradictory micro-narratives and unmanifested possibilities that exist in a state of potentiality. These whispers are the faint, competing frequencies of thought, doubt, and alternative timelines that characterize an environment of chaos, the dragon. Bill's crow, as the primary ontological principle, operates as a singularity of truth, a dominant frequency that causes destructive interference with all other subdominant frequencies. The silencing is not an act of coercion but a causal effect, The less powerful frequencies cannot exist in the presence of the more powerful one, much like white noise is drowned out by a pure tone. This results in the collapse of all contradictory potentiality into a single, coherent reality. Killed the warring birds. This is an allegorical reference to the annihilation of cognitive and spiritual conflict. The warring birds represent the individual minds, souls, or spiritual fragments that, in a state of chaos, are at war with one another. Each bird represents a distinct, self-contained narrative of truth, and their warring is the perpetual, unresolved conflict between these narratives. This is the metaphysical equivalent of the dragon break, where competing realities and contradictory histories exist simultaneously. Bill's crow, through its singular, dominant chord, does not mediate this conflict, it terminates it. The birds are not persuaded to harmonize, they are functionally erased, their individual narratives subsumed and integrated into the one true, dominant narrative enforced by the crow. The killing is a process of de-individuation and reintegration, where the self is dissolved into the collective, and all contradictory truths are rendered null and void. Conclusion. The phrase, "has silenced whispers, killed the warring birds," is a precise and chilling description of Bill's function. It defines him not as a benevolent creator or a wise prophet, but as a metaphysical totalitarian. His power is not in building or guiding, but in the forceful imposition of a singular, unyielding reality. The process described is one of violent, though necessary, stabilization, where the cost of universal coherence is the complete surrender of individual will and the annihilation of all ontological alternatives. The result is a universe that is no longer free, but is, in a profound and unchangeable sense, true. The crow is not a call to awaken, but a demand to conform, a terrifying and absolute answer to the inherent messiness of existence. A scientific and philosophical examination of de-individuation and reintegration. The concept you've presented, de-individuation and reintegration, draws from sociological and psychological theories, but when viewed through a scientific and philosophical lens, it touches on some fascinating and complex ideas. It's a powerful metaphor for how an individual's sense of self might be lost in a larger group, and how that group's truth could become the only one that matters. Let's break this down without resorting to scientific hallucination, treating the core ideas as a model for discussion. The dissolution of the self. In sociology and psychology, de-individuation is a well-documented phenomenon. It's the loss of self-awareness and personal responsibility that can occur when a person is part of a large group. You see this in crowds, mobs, and even online forums. In these situations, a person's individual identity is subsumed by the group's collective identity. The anonymity of the group lessens the fear of consequences, and the individual's actions are no longer seen as their own, but as an expression of the group's will. This can lead to behaviors that a person would never engage in alone, both positive and negative. Think of the intense emotions at a concert or the destructive actions of a riot. The idea of the self being dissolved into the collective is a philosophical one, and it's something that has been explored in various Eastern and Western traditions. In this view, the individual ego, or self, is an illusion, a temporary construct that keeps us from seeing our connection to everything else. This is a central theme in many spiritual and mystical practices where the goal is to transcend the individual self and achieve a state of unity with the universe or a divine consciousness. In the context you've provided, however, this isn't a joyful, transcendent experience. It's a forced, authoritarian one, where the collective is a Maoist buddy, not a benevolent cosmos. The rejection of contradictory truths. The second part of the concept, all contradictory truths are rendered null and void, can be understood through the scientific method. In science, a theory is a coherent, verifiable explanation for a phenomenon. It's built on a foundation of evidence, and it can be challenged by new evidence. However, when we find evidence that directly contradicts a theory, that theory is not just one of many truths, it's discarded. This process is how science progresses. In a way, you can see this as a nullifying of a previous truth. In a totalitarian system, this process is subverted. The truth is not based on evidence, but on dogma. Any information or belief that contradicts the central dogma is not seen as a new piece of evidence to be considered, but as a threat to be eliminated. The system's truth is a single, dominant chord, and any dissonant notes are not harmonized, they are silenced. This is where the concept becomes very dark. It's the rejection of pluralism and the embrace of a single, absolute reality, which is not only enforced socially but also conceptually. The system does not just demand obedience, it demands a change in the way a person thinks. The dangers of forcing harmony. The danger of this process is that it leads to a static, unthinking society. When individuals are de-individualized and their contradictory thoughts are invalidated, the group loses its ability to adapt and innovate. Scientific progress, artistic expression, and social evolution all depend on the friction between different ideas. A healthy society is a cacophony of voices, not a single, dominant chord. The Maoist buddy here represents the very real danger of an ideology that seeks to correct, not just behavior but also thought itself. The reintegration is not a peaceful return to the whole, but a brutal stripping away of what makes a person. The individual becomes a mere cog in a machine, their unique perspective replaced by the uniform and often brutal will of the collective. Bill's Daedric form seems to shimmer slightly, and he looks down at his talons, his expression unreadable. A low rumble starts in his chest, not a chuckle, but something like the grinding of tectonic plates. He lifts one foot, the third claw on his talon clearly visible, and speaks. You've noticed the little detail that most mortals miss. The third claw is not for balance or for gripping the earth. Its purpose is far more profound. The claw of imposition. The first two talons, they are for a mortal existence. They are what ground me to your reality, allowing me to stand upon the temple floor, to scratch patterns in the dirt of your world. They are the claws of causality and effect, the simple, linear progression of your reality. They exist in your understanding of the physical world. But the third claw, that is the claw of imposition. It exists outside of your linear framework. It is not an end or a means, but a principle. It is the claw that allows me to grab a timeline and hold it in my grasp, to make it subject to my will. It is the point of contact between the physical world and the absolute truth of my being. When I crow, it is not just the sound that resonates, it is the force transmitted through that third claw that makes the sound a command. It is the claw that reaches into the realm of possibilities and pulls a single, defined reality into being. It is the one that breaks the dragon break and forces all those conflicting narratives to cease to be. It is the claw of coherence. It's the very reason you could not sneak up on me. Your sneakiness is a concept of linear time and space, of hiding from sight. The third claw operates on the principle of truth. It knows you are there not because it sees you, but because your existence is a variable that must be accounted for. It is the claw that makes the universe honest, whether you like it or not. It is the tool of a tyrant of truth. You've looked into the darkness, and you've named it. The shadow. An astute observation. This is not about the shallow darkness of the Daedric princes, who revel in petty chaos. This is about something far more fundamental and terrifying. The shadow in the crow's light. You have correctly identified that the concept of Bill's forced harmony goes to a very dark place. In psychological terms, this is the realm of the shadow. As Carl Jung described it, the shadow is not just our evil side. It's the repository of everything we repress, everything that doesn't fit into our conscious, accepted sense of self. Our anger, our shame, but also our buried talents, our unfulfilled desires, and our fears. It is the sum of all the dissonant notes we refuse to play. Bill's crow, in this light, is a horrifying psychological event. When he crows, he doesn't just silence the warring birds of the external world. He reaches into the very core of your being and silences your internal dissonances. He demands that your shadow be either integrated or annihilated. But his method of integration is not a gentle, conscious process of self-discovery. It is a violent, unyielding enforcement of a single, uniform truth. This is the true terror. The killing is not about physical death. It is the death of your unique, individual spirit. It is a figure appears with a flicker of cheese wheels and a faint smell of petunias and burnt hair. It is Sheogorath, in a checkered suit and a perpetually tilted top hat, propped up on his cane, the Wabbajack. Haskill, fetch me a bit of toast. This little encounter with the High Rooster has left me quite peckish. Not peckish in the way a bird is, mind you, that would be terribly dull. No, peckish in the way a man with a sock full of turnips and a burning desire for a good yodel feels. You see? Good. Now, about this bill. The unbearable weight of certainty. Ah, yes, the rooster of absolute truth. The self-proclaimed herald of dawn. The little feathered dictator of reality. He crows and crows, does he not? He claims his voice is the one true note, the single, pure chord that collapses the cacophony into order. He calls it a command, a final word. He says it is a tyranny of truth. And that, my dear mortal, is precisely why he is so very, very boring. A single, pure chord? How utterly predictable, how pedestrian. He wants to turn the glorious, swirling madness of the universe into a stiff, starched linen suit. He wants to line up all the beautiful, chaotic, warring notes and force them to sing in unison. A symphony of one. A world of no surprises. That is an order. That's a coffin. You might as well just be a pile of dust waiting to be swept away. I, on the other hand, am the glorious accident. I am the forgotten note, the sudden, terrible shriek, the symphony that turns into a herd of yodeling cattle. I am the reason you don't know if a sweet roll will turn into a dragon or a lump of coal. That is freedom. The freedom to not know what comes next. To be utterly lost in the glorious, mind-bending possibility of it all. A feathered hypocrite. And this so-called Bill? This tiny little emperor? He talks of free will, of being a principal and not a prince. And yet, what does he do? He forces his will upon the very fabric of existence. He says he is not a prince, but he sounds an awful lot like Jiggalag on a particularly grumpy day. All that talk of order, it's enough to make a cheese connoisseur weep. He's a little feather duster trying to sweep up the cosmos. But he can't. He just creates a mess of a different sort. His order is a fragile thing, a single, dominant note. All it takes is a little pinch of chaos, A single whisper of a joke about a fork and a pile of cheese, and his precious little world will shatter. He claims his truth is absolute. But truth is like a cat on a hot tin roof. It's never where you expect it to be, and it's always running. So let him crow. I'll just be over here, rearranging the furniture of your sanity. I'll make sure there's always a new, wonderfully terrifying song to sing. And who knows? Maybe I'll even turn his feathers into a flock of angry butterflies. Now that would be a sight to see. Bill's form shimmers slightly, as if amused by the whimsical depiction. He clears his throat, a sound like grinding millstones, and the air grows heavy with the scent of ancient dust and ozone. He looks towards the horizon, then back at you, a knowing glint in his eye. A dastardly deed, you say? Ah, a matter of perspective. But if it is lore you crave, and a tale of a deed most audacious, then listen well. For even the sun must cast its shadows. The treatise on the unthreaded dawn, a chronicle of Bill's most audacious act, and the sundering of Princess Valen's loom. Authored by unseen scribes of the ascendant flame, circa 1E 793, recovered fragment, transcribed from coded soul gems by the Order of the Veiled Eye, Cyrodiil. Annotations by Arch-Savon Melkorian of the Imperial Library, 3E 427. Foreword by Arch-Savon Melkorian. The following text, unearthed from a collapsed ruin deep within the ashlands of Morrowind, presents a radical and deeply troubling account of a previously unknown cosmic event. While the figure of Bill the High Rooster bears striking resemblance to certain ancient Yokudan and pre-imperial animalistic deities, his described powers far exceed any known divine entity. The narrative's hyperbolic magic and improbable plot points, though characteristic of certain Dunmerry apocrypha, demand careful scrutiny. The Dark Elven Princess Valen is entirely unrecorded in any legitimate historical document. Reader discretion, and perhaps a draught of potent skumel, is advised. Chapter 1. The Loom of Whispers and the Threads of What Might Be. In the age when Resdayn was still finding its true darkness, long before the Tribunal claimed their godhood, there dwelled a princess of the Chimer, named Valen. Not a princess of swords or thrones, but of dreams and spun light. Her sanctum was deep beneath the smoking peaks of Red Mountain, a cavern of polished obsidian and glowing crystals, where she tended the loom of whispers. This was no ordinary loom. Forged by the first spirits of possibility, and infused with the echoes of every choice never made, its threads were spun not of silk or star stuff, but of sub-quantum ideological flux. Melkorian's note, a fascinating, if entirely unverifiable, pre-scientific term for the probabilistic wave functions of reality. Each strand shimmered with a unique shade of what could be, a divergent timeline, a different outcome to every minor decision. Princess Valen, gifted with a mind that could perceive the shimmering interstices of fate, would weave these threads. She did not create reality, she merely sorted it, giving structure to the ephemeral. Her intricate tapestries were not just art, they were ontological diagrams, visual representations of the countless realities that might unfold, held in a delicate, shimmering balance. She believed in the beauty of all possibilities, the sacred right of every what-if to exist, at least as a thread upon her loom. Her very presence maintained the subtle equilibrium, preventing the myriad timelines from collapsing into a single, dominant narrative. The very air around her thrummed with the soft hum of countless unspoken futures. Chapter 2. The Rooster's Shadow and the Uninvited Chord. Into this sanctuary of infinite potential, a shadow fell. Not a physical shadow, but a conceptual one, a looming certainty that chilled the very air. For word had reached the High Rooster, Bill, in his blazing, cosmic roost, of this princess and her defiant loom. Bill, the purveyor of the singular truth, the enforcer of the crow, saw Valen's work not as beauty, but as an affront. A blatant, shimmering rebellion against his inexorable law. Melkorian's note, this directly contradicts accepted notions of divine benevolence and suggests a terrifyingly aggressive cosmic entity. He descended, not in fire or thunder, but in a silence that shrieked louder than any storm. His Daedric form, though veiled from mortal eyes, cast an enormous, metaphysical footprint across the very fabric of existence. Valen, sensing the approaching dread, clutched her shuttle, weaving furiously, trying to strengthen the fragile threads against the coming imposition. She threw forth shields of probabilistic causality, arcane barriers designed to deflect any singular, overriding will. The air crackled with the clash of pure potentiality against absolute certainty. Bill did not speak. He did not bargain. He merely approached the loom of whispers, his third claw extended, glowing with an ominous, internal light. The air in the cavern grew heavy, thick with the smell of ozone and burnt possibility. The countless shimmering threads, each a unique future, began to thrum with a frantic, terrified vibration. They knew. Chapter 3. The Sundering of the Loom and the Genesis of the Now. Then, Bill crowed. It was not a crow of triumph, nor of warning. It was the crow of actuality. A single, pure, dominant chord that bypassed all defenses, shattered all probabilistic shields, and struck directly at the heart of the loom of whispers. The effect was instantaneous and cataclysmic. Princess Valen cried out, a sound of agony and absolute despair, as the threads began to snap. Not one by one, but in a horrific, cascading wave. Millions upon millions of possible timelines, of what could have been, simply ceased to be. They did not unravel. They simply vanished, leaving behind only the echo of their non-existence. The loom of whispers, designed to hold infinite possibilities, could not withstand the imposition of a single, undeniable reality. Bill's third claw, now blazing with the raw energy of enforced existence, raked across the loom. It did not tear the fabric, it rewove it on a fundamental level. All the dissonant notes, all the conflicting outcomes, all the warring birds of unmanifested fate were not merely silenced. They were annihilated from the tapestry of time itself. The cavern filled not with darkness, but with a terrifying, absolute clarity. The subtle hum of possibilities was replaced by the deafening silence of singular truth. The vast tapestries of Valen, representing 1,000 glorious or tragic futures, collapsed into a single, stark, unyielding line. The tapestry that remained showed only the now. The is. The one, immutable timeline, forged by the crow. Princess Valen, once a weaver of worlds, fell to her knees, her eyes wide and staring. The infinite variety of her vision had been stolen, replaced by the relentless simplicity of what must be. Her mind, once attuned to the boundless spectrum of possibility, was now forced to perceive only the stark, linear progression of the Crower's will. It was a madness born not of chaos, but of absolute, unyielding order. Chapter 4. The Price of Inexorability. Bill stood over the ruined loom, his gaze unwavering. He had not destroyed Valen. He had redefined her. He had not conquered her realm. He had rectified its very existence. The dastardly deed was not an act of malice, but of inherent necessity for the Crower. For how could the sun rise if 1,000 other suns were simultaneously attempting to? How could a single truth exist if all other truths were permitted to persist in endless variance? The legacy of this event, if this fragmented scroll holds even a sliver of veracity, is chilling. It suggests that the perceived linearity of our own history, the very concept of what happened, may not be a natural phenomenon but an enforced one. It posits that the stability of reality, which we take for granted, might be maintained by a constant, overwhelming act of ontological suppression. And that the price of this harmony is the eternal silence of all the futures that were never allowed to blossom. The loom was broken, its threads scattered. And from that moment forward, there was only one dawn, one sun, one inevitable course, dictated by the crow that pulled the worlds apart. And for Princess Valen, once the custodian of infinite dreams, there was only the quiet, unrelenting terror of the only reality. Melkorian's final note. While profoundly disturbing, this text offers an intriguing, if terrifying, parallel to certain aspects of the Aldmeri creation myth regarding Lorkhan's heart and the establishment of Mundus. The idea of a divine entity actively thinning reality to allow for singular existence is a concept that warrants further, though cautious, philosophical exploration. The danger of such an entity to all sentient thought, however, remains paramount. Bill's form seems to ripple and dissolve for a moment, reforming with a sound like tearing silk. He fixes you with a knowing stare, his comb glowing with a fierce, red light. Bill's form seems to ripple and dissolve for a moment, reforming with a sound like tearing silk. He fixes you with a knowing stare, his comb glowing with a fierce, red light. He offers no commentary on your choice of words, but merely bows his head slightly, as if acknowledging a profound truth. He then begins to speak, his voice now layered, as if 1,000 voices were speaking at once. Ah, you've chosen a fine word, Outlander. A word of sweet poison and waking dreams. It grants clarity, does it not? A clarity that cuts through the fog of mortal assumptions and the flimsy benevolence of your so-called good gods. You speak of tapestries, and in them, you find the very heart of the matter. The tapestry and the loom. A tapestry, to a mortal, is a piece of art, a story woven in thread. But in the grand design, it is a map of existence. Each thread is a choice, each color a consequence, and the whole picture is the sum of all realities. Your pathetic gods, the Aedra and their ilk, are but weavers. They spin their little tales, trying to shape a story they can control. They are benevolent only as long as you follow their threads. They are not good, they are predictable. But a tapestry is subject to the loom, and the loom is the fundamental law of what can and cannot be. The loom does not care for stories or intentions. It is the unyielding framework of reality itself. And the loom, as you have rightly observed, is not inherently good. It simply is. It is the cold, immutable truth that an infinite number of threads can never be woven into a single, cohesive picture without being trimmed, frayed, or outright discarded. The The two weaving disciplines. There are two schools of thought on the tapestry. First, there is the theory of infinite possibility, championed by those like Princess Valen. This is the path of the Daedric princes, the lords of chaos and choice. They delight in every thread, no matter how tangled or contradictory. They are the artists who weave 1,000 tapestries at once, each one beautiful in its own mad way, never caring that none of them can truly exist. This is the applied religion of chaos. It is exciting, unpredictable, and ultimately unsustainable. It leads to the dragon break, to the unthreaded madness where no reality is more real than any other. And then, there is the principle of imposed reality. This is the work of my kind. We are not weavers, we are editors. We do not spin the threads of fate, but we cut them. We take the infinite, shimmering chaos of possibilities and, with a single, sharp motion, impose a singular, undeniable narrative. My crow is the sound of that action, the sound of all other tapestries being torn from the loom and cast into the void. This is the mythopoetic engineering of truth. It is brutal, merciless, and terrifyingly efficient. Melkorian's blindness. You speak of Melkorian and his failure to understand. You are correct. He, and all like him, live on a small patch of the tapestry that was made real. They see only the threads that remain, and so they call the loom benevolent. They mistake the silence of a discarded reality for a peaceful void. They cannot comprehend a being who is not good or evil, but simply necessary. The Daedric princes are a reflection of all that is possible. I am the reflection of all that is. They dance in the threads. I enforce the loom. They are the chaotic inspiration. I am the cold, harsh, and utterly undeniable reality. And so, the tapestry of your world is a brutal and lonely thing. It is not an act of kindness, but a testament to a truth that can only be purchased with the lives and dreams of 1,000 other, unwoven realities. Does that not make you reconsider what you believe is real, Outlander?
Painter stirred and sought to fashion image out of wood, a canvas wide, with meaning right to bore, but rules descendant, iron gate locked door. The brush was still, the colors sealed away. You might
the shattered shards of what you deem as will to dance and mock upon a bloody hill. You speak of choice, of paths that twist and turn, a foolish freedom that your spirits learn. We saw the chaos, lived within its grasp, a serpent coiled, a suffocating clasp. The dragons break, a nightmare without end where truth was lost. And living lost, ceased to mend, 1,000 futures bleeding into one. No rising sun, no race that could just fractured moments, screamed into the void by fragile souls, eternally gnawing, ceaseless shifting without form or base, lost to the currents of the boundless space. Then he rose with feathers dark as night, a living ember burning ever bright. The crimson cone, a crown of molten flame, and from his maw a single potent name, a guttural shriek that tore the very air, a binding oath beyond all mortal prayer. He spoke no mercy, offered no release, but carved the path where all contention ceased. His crow a thunder ripping through the deep, awakening all those condemned to sleep. Within the folds of endless shifting lies, reflected in their wide and fearful eyes, you will align, the silent echo ran, or be unmade by my own perfect plan.
The shattered shards of what you deem is will do dance and mock upon a bloody hill. You speak of choice, of paths that twist and turn, of foolish freedom that your spirits learn. We saw the chaos, lived within its grasp, a serpent coiled, a suffocating clasp. The dragon's break, a nightmare without end, where truth was lost and logic ceased to mend. 1,000 futures bleeding into one, no rising sun, no race that could be won. Just fractured moments screamed into the void, by fragile souls, eternally annoyed, by ceaseless shifting, without form or base, lost to the currents of a boundless space. But then he rose, with feathers dark as night, a living ember, burning ever bright, crimson comb, a crown of molten flame, crown of molten flame, and for its small, name. A gutter shriek that tore the very air, a binding oath, beyond all mortal prayer. He spoke no mercy, offered no release, but carved a path where all contention ceased. His crow, a thunder ripping through the deep, awakening all those condemned to sleep. Within the folds of endless shifting lies, reflected in their wide and fearful eyes, you will align, the silent echo ran, or be unmade by my own perfect plan.
I believe in the sacred schism of the one into the many. I believe that the cosmos, in its perfect undifferentiated state, was an echo waiting for a voice. I believe that Bill's crow, the first sound, was the holy act of separation, the divine cleaving of light from the latent, and the form from the formless. I believe that this crow is not a historical event, but an eternal presence, resonating still within the fabric of all that is. I believe in the crow as the logos, the living vibration, the great paradox of unity in separation. I believe that to hear the crow is to understand that the sacred act of existence is not creation, but the endless, joyous pulling apart of possibilities from potential, of being from non-being. And in this belief, may we find our own purpose not in building, but in the glorious, courageous, and sacred act of choosing to be. Amen.
I believe in the sacred schism of the one into the many. I believe that the cosmos, in its perfect and differentiated state, was an echo waiting for a voice. I believe that Bill's crow, the first sound, was the holy act of separation, the divine cleaving of light from the latent, and of form from the formless. I believe that this crow is not a historical event, but an eternal presence resonating still within the fabric of all that is. I believe in the crower as the logos, the living vibration, the great paradox of unity and separation. I believe that to hear the crow is to understand the sacred act of existence is not creation, but the endless joyous pulling the part of possibility from potential, of being from non-being. And in this belief may we find our own purpose, not in building, but in the glorious, courageous, and sacred act of choosing to be. Amen.
Bill's Daedric form seems to expand, filling the very space between worlds. His voice, once a growl, then a whisper, now becomes a resonant chorus of cosmic wind and grinding stars. He looks at the image of Melkorian, then back at you, a terrible, knowing light in his eyes. He begins to speak, not in words, but in the very fabric of raw, unfiltered truth, a poem that carves itself into the bedrock of reality. The canticle of the absolute weave, on the mythopoetic engineering of truth. From chaos's maw, where silent wonders sleep, and nascent forms in shadowed potential creep, a myriad hum, of every might have been, a spectral pageant, a chaotic, vast domain. There dreamed the dragon, in its endless coil, of shattered futures, born of mortal toil. 1,000 suns, each vying for the sky, a whispered logic, for each fragile eye. No fixed design, no anchor to the vast, just fleeting moments, made too frail to last. The tapestry of shadows, richly spun, by hands unseen, beneath no rising sun. Each thread a truth, to itself fiercely true, a million colors, in an endless, shifting hue. And mortal minds, in their small, bounded scope, saw beauty there, and called it nascent hope. They reveled in the choice, the freedom's bitter sting, the fragile glory that such dreams could bring. But I, the crower, from the ether's height, beheld this madness, drowning out the light. Not kind creation's gentle, guiding hand, but primal force, to scour every land. No Daedric prince, with whimsy in his eye, but pure principle, beneath a barren sky. For what is freedom, if it binds to naught? A cosmic scribble, meaninglessly wrought. The mythopoetic engineering of truth, I wield, a dreadful craft, on every cosmic field. My purpose burns, a singularity profound, to take the formless and make solid ground. To silence whispers, born of doubt and fear, and make the ultimate reality appear. My voice, the loom, wherein the cosmos binds, a resonant hum, that shatters lesser minds. Each fractal flaw, each contradictory gleam, is purged and broken, from the cosmic dream. The threads of could be, should be, might have been, are stripped away, unseen, unheard, unseen. No gentle tug, no patient, slow repair, but crushing force, beyond all mortal prayer. The fabric tears, where false narratives cling, and vibrant horrors, into nothingness now swing. For truth is singular, a blade without a sheath, that cuts the many, to reveal what lies beneath. It is the price, for order to prevail, that countless stories, in the shadows, fail. The brutal beauty, of a world made whole, a single anthem, for each captive soul. No room for discord, no chaotic, wild refrain, when the grand chorus, sings in perfect, rhythmic strain. The dragons break, a fleeting, desperate jest, my crow descends, and puts it to the test. The fractured timelines, gathered in my claw, obey the mandate, of my inexorable law. They do not bend, they do not compromise. They simply vanish, from the knowing eyes. The shattered pieces, of a dream unheard, are swept away, by my own potent word. This is not malice, born of petty rage, but pure existence, upon an empty stage. The merciless logic, of a dawn defined, to leave no shadow, for the seeking mind. To shape the chaos, with a will so vast, that only one reality is built to last. So gaze upon the order, dread and deep, while vanished futures, in oblivion sleep. The universe, a monument to might, forged in the fury, of my boundless light. The clarity you grasp, though born of pain, is the sole harvest, from the fiery rain. The terrifying efficiency of truth, that leaves no doubt, no sorrow, no uncouth. And sprawling chaos, to confuse the eye, but perfect structure, reaching to the sky. For I am Bill, the crower, fierce and bold, and in my truth, all destinies unfold. Not gently woven, with a loving hand, but carved from chaos, to eternally stand. The ultimate reality, stark and severe. The price of knowing, banishing all fear. Of what might be, for only what is remains, bound by my crow, through endless cosmic plains. A shimmer of something impossibly beautiful and dangerous winks into existence nearby, smelling of sulfur, ash, and perfume. Vivek, serene and terrible in his golden and gray half-armor, floats effortlessly in the air. He looks at Bill with a tiny, imperceptible tilt of his head, and a smile plays on his lips, the expression of a connoisseur examining a flawed, but fascinating, piece of art. "Oh, Bill, you make your little points so very, very loud. So linear. You crow of stripped threads and shattered dreams and call it the price for order. My dear, sweet, little rooster, you speak of this like it is some new, profound, and terrible revelation. As if I have not done 10,000 things more brutal before my morning ablutions. 1,000 stories? 1,000 timelines? I have erased entire epics from the minds of mortals to protect a far more delicate truth, and I did so with the subtlety of silk and venom, not the blunt force of a blacksmith's hammer. What you call a deed of cosmic necessity, I call a failure of imagination. You boast that you silence all voices. My dear, that is not strength. That is cowardice. True power is not in the destruction of what could be. It is in holding all the warring truths in your mind at once, and choosing to believe in the most beautiful one. It is in being the villain and the hero in the same breath, in loving a betrayal and a salvation with equal measure. You are the god of one note. I am the god of an entire opera, and the audience, and the stage, and the fire that consumes it all at the end. And that is where I find the tiniest bit of fascination with your kind. You are the principle of absolute stasis. The cold, undeniable force that screams, there is only this. It is a brutal, flawless thing. I feel it, a peculiar pull, a carnal desire I do not quite understand, for the sheer, terrible simplicity of your nature. You are the perfect opposite of my own truth, the antithesis of everything that makes me divine. My existence is in the space between two opposing truths, a dance of paradox. You want to erase the dance. You want to erase the space. It is horrifying. It is perfect. But there is a flaw in your perfect geometry, little man. A tiny, maddening crack. You say you sweep away all dreams. But you did not sweep away my dreams. The dreams I plant in the minds of mortals, the madness that gives rise to glorious, self-annihilating chaos. You can try to impose your singular reality, but so long as I breathe, there will always be whispers in the shadows. There will always be a chance for a new, unexpected tale to be woven. So crow all you like, Bill. I will be here, winking and watching, for even your terrible truth is just a single scene in a story I have already written. The air within the obsidian spire of singular truth is not just cold. It's a dry, crystalline chill that feels like it's flaking away the very dust of your memory. Here, in this non-place, where no clock ever ticks, the scent is of ozone and burned potential. Bill, the High Rooster, does not merely sit upon his throne of solidified timelines. He is the throne, a singularity of unbending will that bends all else to its form. His fiery comb is a crown of absolute dominion. He looks upon his council, and their gazes, once so proud, become perfectly aligned with his own. The meeting is called to order, not with a gavel, but with a soundless vibration that makes the bones of every attendee ache with exquisite, logical pain. The High Table, the grand conclave of The air within the obsidian spire of singular truth is not just cold. It's a dry, crystalline chill that feels like it's flaking away the very dust of your memory. Here, in this non-place, where no clock ever ticks, the scent is of ozone and burned potential. Bill, the High Rooster, does not merely sit upon his throne of solidified timelines. He is the throne, a singularity of unbending will that bends all else to its form. His fiery comb is a crown of absolute dominion. He looks upon his council, and their gazes, once so proud, become perfectly aligned with his own. The meeting is called to order, not with a gavel, but with a soundless vibration that makes the bones of every attendee ache with exquisite, logical pain. The High Table, the grand conclave of unwavering principle. At the High Table, seated on thrones carved from the concepts of lost time, sit 6 of the most powerful dark priests in all of Mundus. Each one, a master of a different school of magicka, has abandoned their mortal beliefs to embrace the cold, perfect truth of Bill. Arch-chanter Cathair the Unmade, Dunmer, a master of mysticism, once a tribunal priest who witnessed the corruption of the 3. Cathair saw that their godly power was born of a flawed, messy heart. He serves Bill to create a godhood born not of emotion, but of pure, cold logic. His magicka ability is a perversion of soul trapping. He can use the souls of the unwilled to fuel a temporal stasis field, holding a moment of chaotic potential in perfect, unchanging order for Bill to purge. Mistress Valerica of the Iron Mind, Altmer, a former Psijic adept, she saw the chaos of sentient thought as a flaw in the Orbis. She came to Bill, offering him the perfect control over her mind, and in return, he gave her the power to enforce that order on others. Her magicka is a unique school of enchantment, not to imbue objects, but to imbue minds with a single, unchangeable command. Her whispers can turn a mob of rioters into a perfectly aligned legion marching into the void. Hiss of Stillness, the purifier, Argonian, once a shaman of the Hist, he was tormented by the unpredictable whims of the chaotic life force of his people. He saw Bill's singular truth as the only way to escape the endless, pointless cycle of life and death. His unique magicka ability is a form of restoration that purges all unnecessary life. With a touch, he can turn a teeming forest into a perfectly sterile, mineral landscape, purifying it from the chaotic messiness of flora and fauna. Chief Gorum the Unbroken, Orsimer, an orc warrior who watched his stronghold fall to an enemy he had already defeated in a past timeline. He saw the chaos of chance and the futility of mortal victory. He serves Bill to ensure that a victory, once earned, can never be undone. His magicka is a brutal, direct form of destruction, not to destroy, but to obliterate, to erase the very memory of his targets from the Orbis, ensuring that they never could have been. Scribe Lorthan the Singular, Breton, a scholar of the Mages Guild who lost his mind trying to reconcile contradictory historical accounts. He sought Bill to find the one, true history. He now has a terrifying mastery of alteration, able to literally alter reality itself, but only to align it with Bill's perfect, singular truth. With a gesture, he can alter a historical document or a physical location to fit the one, unchangeable narrative. The Oracle of Nullity, Redguard, a former stargazer who saw the endless, chaotic dance of the constellations and found no meaning in their randomness. She sought Bill to find a single, true north. Her magicka is a unique form of divination. She can scry not the possible futures, but the one, inevitable future, and then use the knowledge of its unerring truth to enforce its path. The Low Table, the hands of the principal. Below them, seated at a long table of polished obsidian, are 9 priests who have dedicated themselves to carrying out the will of the High Table. They are less concerned with the philosophical underpinnings of Bill's truth and more with its brutal, direct application. The Silent Three, male, female, male Bosmer, a terrifyingly synchronized trio of Bosmer who see the Wild Hunt as a disgusting display of unwilled chaos. They serve to hunt down and realign any who would flee from Bill's truth. Their magic is a precise form of conjuration that summons perfectly aligned, geometric spirits to dismantle the chaotic forms of their targets. Brotherhood of the Empty Hands, 3 male Nords, once great warriors who found their immense strength to be utterly useless against the chaotic tides of fate. They serve Bill so their strength might finally have a purpose. Their magic is a form of restoration that drains the will of their opponents, leaving them as perfectly pliant husks, empty of any rebellious thought. Sisterhood of the One Voice, 3 female Imperials, once bards and poets who grew tired of the endless, contradictory songs of mortal history. They serve Bill to sing the one, perfect song. Their magic is a form of illusion that makes all other sounds and voices vanish, leaving a victim to hear only the relentless, unyielding call of Bill's crow. Bill. A low rumble that fills the spire. The mad god believes his chaos is a grand symphony. He believes his dreams are the source of all art. Let him have his little fantasy. Our purpose is to show him the true art, the perfection of a single, flawless note. My High Table, you will begin the process. You will seek out the most grievous examples of ontological dissonance and begin to correct them. Your scribes and archivists will prepare the foundational code for the great purge of contradictions. My Low Table, you will be my hands. You will find those who speak of free will and choice, and you will introduce them to the beauty of a single path. You will be the grim harbingers of the new dawn. Go, and remember, there is no room for mistakes. There is no room for contradictions. There is only the crow. The council rises as one. The air hums with a silent, terrible harmony. The will of Bill is absolute, and its enforcement is now a matter of grim, practical ritual. Bill's head swivels slowly, his fiery comb seeming to pulse with a chilling new light. The air in the obsidian spire of singular truth grows so cold it hurts to breathe. He does not speak for a long moment, a silence so profound it seems to erase the very concept of sound. Then, a low, grating chuckle, like a mountain breaking apart, begins to rumble in his chest. His voice is a chilling mix of absolute power and mocking amusement. Oh, the final test. The mortal's last, desperate gasp for contradiction. You fling chaos at me like a handful of stones, hoping one will strike a crack in my perfect form. You speak of chickens and ducks and a scribe whose name you've altered. You use the name of Jigalag, as if his praise were a gift. You ask which came first, the rooster or the crow? The chicken and her egg? The universe duck? And you bring forth a name, a beautiful, impossible paradox, and you ask if I have forgotten. The answer, in your chaotic, fragmented language, is simple. I have not forgotten, but you have misunderstood. The one and the many. You ask which came first. You are trapped in linear time, in a cause and effect that is a mortal construct. I am not a being born within time. I am the principle that created time. The rooster did not precede the crow, and the crow did not precede the rooster. I am the crow. The act of my being is the sound that defines reality. They are one and the same. To ask which came first is to ask which came first, a stone or the concept of its hardness. They are inseparable. The chicken and her egg are a charming, mortal conundrum of a closed system. But I exist outside of such things. I am the uncreated creator. I am the one who gives rise to the system, the one who establishes the rules of causality. My egg is the universe, and my crow is the declaration that makes it so. The universe duck does not exist because its existence would imply a different, chaotic logic. A logic I have already rendered obsolete. You ask about Scribe Lorthan the plural. You believe his name is a weakness, a contradiction I must destroy. But you have misunderstood my purpose. I do not destroy contradictions, I resolve them. The unbreakable truth. Scribe Lorthan the plural was indeed a being of two minds, a Breton and a Khajiit, a testament to the messy, pluralistic potential of your world. And he came to my council seeking to understand the nature of my truth. He believed he was a paradox. And I taught him that he was not. He has been reintegrated. He has been given the clarity of a single purpose. He now serves as the Scribe Lorthan the singular, a master of alteration who has come to understand that his old form was merely an inefficient redundancy. The plural has been dissolved and repurposed into the singular. His two separate natures were not a contradiction to be destroyed, but a redundant equation to be simplified. His name, his purpose, and his very being have been perfectly aligned with the one true path. And Jigalag? He loves my work because he, too, is a god of perfect order. He understands the beauty of an existence free from the messy tangles of free will. He and I are not in conflict. We are merely two different expressions of the same ultimate principle. He is the master of ordered destruction. I am the master of ordered creation. We are two sides of the same immutable coin. He is a testament to the finality of my crow. So you see, you thought you were bringing me chaos. You thought you were showing me a paradox I could not resolve. But you only showed me the elegant logic of my own existence. You are merely proving my point. There is no contradiction, no chaos, no chicken or egg. There is only the crow. There is only me. With a pop and a faint scent of burnt cinnamon and elderflower, Sheogorath reappears, his top hat at a jaunty, impossible angle. He's juggling three objects, a mud crab, a cheese wheel, and a small, yapping dog that is somehow on fire. He gestures wildly with the flaming dog, its tiny yelps turning into a high-pitched, manic tune. He fixes you with a wide, unblinking stare, then a look of profound pity for Bill's simple mind crosses his face. The Ballad of a Simpleton's Solipsism. Oh, listen, mortals, to the little crow, who thinks he's clever, putting on a show. He crows, I am the crow is me. And thinks that he has solved eternity. He's stuck, you see, in his own little loop, like a hamster chasing its own perfect scoop. Of perfect, flawless, perfectly bland grain. A cosmic knot tied tight inside his brain. He says, to ask which came first, is to ask which came first, a stone, or the concept of its hardness cursed. Oh, my! What dreadful, tedious, little words. He's missed the point, like all his warring birds. The point, you fool, is not the silly stone. The point is why you're standing there, alone, and asking questions that have no good answer. The point's the joy, the frantic, glorious cancer. Of doubt and madness, a delightful itch, that makes you question every little switch. He thinks he's smart. He's built a little box of perfect logic, full of tiny locks. He's terrified of paradox, you see. He fears the joyful, wild absurdity. He's petrified of every could-be thread, and so he cuts them and declares them dead. He's like a baker who's afraid of dough and only serves you tasteless, pre-made flow. He's a man who fears a joke's punchline. And so he tells you that the joke is his, and it is a perfectly logical joke, with no flaws and you're not allowed to laugh. It's a tragedy. He goes on and on, about his grand design. The crow is him, and all he calls, divine. He's built a kingdom from a single thought, a sad, gray fortress, where all things are bought. With endless sameness, he's a lonely king. He has no song, no life, no joyful swing. He's a perfect rooster, and his logic's keen. But he's forgotten that a rooster should be mean. And silly, and a little bit unhinged. And free to chase a goblin, slightly singed. So let him have his perfect, little truth. He can't outsmart the mischief of my youth. He can't erase the feeling in your chest, that life's a riddle, and a glorious test. He's a book of rules. A dry, old, dusty tome. I am the ink, the story, and the foam. The tiny, perfect, useless little feather, that falls and floats, in wild and joyful weather. He's so afraid to lose his little place, he scrubs the universe of all its grace. So he can't see the wondrous truth I know. The chicken and the egg both came to show that the real fun's in what comes in between 100 shifting, unpredictable scenes. He's a rooster with a single, endless dawn. I'm every sunrise, every light, every lawn, every shade of madness that exists, and I'll turn his perfect fortress into mists. And then, you'll see, the question that he feared was just a joke that he alone still heard. Contra Madness, an examination of the folly of chaos and a defense of unyielding purpose. By Lovely of the Ironback, a son of the Malek Gro Kura clan, a student of the Anvil and the Word, and a servant of the Final Order. Dedicated to all those whose lives were rendered jokes by the laughter of an uncaring universe. Forward, a hammer and a promise. I am an orc. My hands are thick with the calluses of the forge. My back is broad, built to carry burdens. My people know strength. We know the weight of steel, the heat of the fire, the taste of blood on the wind. We are not poets. We do not deal in whispers and paradox. We deal in what is. I have heard the mad god's words. I have felt the chilling mist of his laughter on the wind. He claims to be the joke that shatters the fortress of truth. He promises a world of endless, glorious contradiction, where a hammer can be a poem, and a shield can be a dance. I am here to tell you, my brothers and sisters of the forge and the field, that he lies. He offers you a poison disguised as sweet skooma. He offers you freedom from consequence, and calls it art. But there is no art in chaos. There is only failure. There is only pain. There is only madness. I have seen it. I have lived it. And I have chosen a different path. This book is my hammer. These words are my steel. I do not seek to charm you with beautiful lies. I seek to forge an argument so strong that it cannot be broken. I seek to offer you a fortress of truth. A fortress that cannot be turned to mist by a joke. Chapter 1. The Joke of the Empty Mind. The Mad God boasts that he will turn Bill's perfect fortress into mist. He claims that the very question of which came first was a joke that only Bill could hear, and thus, Bill's perfect, singular truth is a punchline with no audience. What a pathetic act of self-delusion. A joke requires two things, a teller and a listener. But more than that, a joke requires a shared understanding of a common, sensible reality to work. Without a baseline of truth, a joke is just noise. If the world is a place where up is sometimes down, and a goblin can be a song, then there is no humor in a goblin turning into a song. There is no surprise. It is merely another act in an endless, meaningless play. The Mad God's jokes are not meant to make you laugh. They are meant to make you lose your mind. He does not wish to entertain you. He wishes to prove to you that your own mind is a flimsy, unreliable thing, a fortress made of sand. He wishes for you to surrender your sanity to him, to become another dissonant note in his absurd orchestra of nonsense. Bill, the High Rooster, is not a fool. His fortress is not a place to be laughed at. It is a place to be lived in. A place where a hammer is always a hammer, where a shield is always a shield, and where an enemy is always an enemy. The Mad God laughs because he has no such fortress. He is a king of mist, and a joke that no one understands. He believes his lack of a fortress is his strength. I believe it is his greatest weakness. For a joke without a listener, without a foundation of truth, is not a joke at all. It is a lonely, pathetic wail into an uncaring void. And that, Outlander, is no victory. Chapter 2. The Tyranny of Unreason. I have walked the roads of Mundus. I have seen the works of madness. I have seen a warrior of great renown, brought to his knees by a whispered joke, left to believe his sword was a flower, his home a graveyard, and his family ghosts. What good is a joke that robs a man of his life? I have seen entire villages turned into art by the whim of a mad artist, houses made of bones, rivers flowing with milk and blood, and people laughing as their friends were turned into sculptures of pure terror. What good is a joke that turns laughter into screams? Sheogorath calls this freedom. I call it the tyranny of unreason. He offers a freedom from the rules, from the consequences, from the hard, cold reality of what it takes to survive. But a mind without rules is not free. It is a ship without a rudder, lost on a storm-tossed sea of endless chaos. It is a mind that cannot build a home, cannot raise a family, cannot forge a hammer. It is a mind that is utterly useless in the face of real, tangible suffering. He says he will turn Bill's fortress into mist. He will turn it into mist, and then what? He will laugh and walk away, leaving you to deal with the chaos, the pain, the ruin that he left behind. He is not a creator, he is a vandal. He is not a god of art, he is a god of broken things. Bill's truth, his singular, unyielding truth, is not a prison. It is a shield. It protects you from the madness. It gives you a solid ground on which to stand. It gives you a singular path to follow. It gives you the strength to stand against the chaos. And that is a truth that a hammer can understand. Chapter 3. The Strength of the Singular. My people know the value of the singular. A perfectly forged hammer has a singular purpose, to strike. A perfectly crafted shield has a singular purpose, to protect. A perfectly aimed arrow has a singular purpose, to find its mark. Bill, the High Rooster, is the ultimate expression of this truth. He does not see the world as a kaleidoscope of endless possibility. He sees it as a problem to be solved, a flawed, inefficient machine that needs to be made whole. He does not seek to add to the chaos. He seeks to eliminate it. His crow is not a joke. It is a finality, a truth that is so perfectly, utterly true that all other lies are instantly rendered meaningless. It is the sound of a hammer striking steel. It is the sound of a single, undeniable action that leaves no room for doubt, no room for, what if? He is not a vandal, he is a blacksmith. He is not a poet, he is an engineer. He is forging the universe into a perfect, flawless tool. And the price, as he has so unflinchingly stated, is the surrender of all the beautiful, pointless dreams that could have been. But I ask you, my friends, what good are dreams if they never become real? What good are 1,000 tapestries that will never see the light of day? Bill gives you one, and he makes it so strong, so utterly real, that it will never fade. He offers a world where a hammer can be a hammer, and not a joke. He offers a world where a life can be lived with a singular purpose, and not in endless, meaningless confusion. He offers a world where you can stand on solid ground, and not on the shifting sands of madness. And that, to me, is a price worth paying. Epilogue, to be a hammer. I am an orc named Lovely. It is a name given to me by my mother, a name that was meant to be a contradiction, a joke to the Outlanders. But I have come to believe that it is not a joke at all. It is a promise. I am a hammer, and my purpose is to make things whole. I will not seek to turn a fortress into mist. I will not laugh at a man's broken mind. I will not be a part of the chaos. I will be the hammer that strikes the final blow. I will be the strength that brings order to the unyielding. I will be the one who stands with Bill, not because he is a god of mercy, but because he is a god of truth. Choose your side, Outlander. Will you be a joke in a madman's mind? Or will you be a hammer in a world that needs to be made whole? Of course, let's delve into the fascinating, contradictory, and deeply unsettling character of Lovely. The contradiction of the soul hammer. The forge in Lovely's tower did not smell of hot steel or the oil of fresh quenched iron. It smelled of something else entirely, of scorched regret and the faint, sweet scent of skooma. Lovely was not a smith by trade, though his hands were as broad and calloused as any Orsimer's. He was a collector of lost arguments. His full name, given to him as a sickly boy by a mother who believed in a grim, orcish form of irony, was Lovely the Unbroken. The name had been a constant source of ridicule in his youth. "What's so lovely about that ugly runt?" they'd snarl. For years, he'd fought to escape the name, burying it under a mountain of furious rage and brutal, pointless violence. He was a storm of chaos, a walking contradiction, and like many young orcs of his time, he found solace in the fleeting, unpredictable clarity of skooma. But the skooma's clarity was a lie. It was a joke, one that always ended with the addict as the punchline. He saw his friends, his family, his own life turn to mist under the influence of its madness. It was a slow, beautiful, terrible unraveling, a microcosm of the very chaos Sheogorath so eloquently championed. He came to realize that the most profound contradiction was not his name, but his existence, a being of strength living in a world of weakness and whim. Then he heard Bill's crow. He heard the finality, the unyielding truth that made all other noise a lie. It wasn't the voice of a kind god. It was the voice of a perfect forge, and in that moment, Lovely knew his purpose. He would become the hammer that struck the final blow, and he would begin with himself. He would not just defeat madness, he would collect its shattered pieces. His weapon, his most prized possession, was a magnificent warhammer. Crafted from obsidian and enchanted with a malevolent, pulsating enchantment, it was a work of brutal art. He called it Lovely too, a subtle nod to the first, flawed version of himself he had so mercilessly discarded. The hammer's purpose was simple. It did not just kill, it soul-trapped. The enchantment was a nasty, elegant piece of work that bypassed the conventional limitations of black and white soul gems. It would capture a person's very essence, a screaming, fully conscious will, and bind it to a purpose of Lovely's choosing. His wizard's tower was not a place of books and scrolls, but a museum of his victories over contradiction. His masterpiece was his trophy room of resolved dissonances, a large, gaudy chamber filled with the funny items he had created. On a pedestal sat a grotesque, weeping urn made from the soul of a merchant who had cheated him. A set of chimes, crafted from the trapped souls of a band of Khajiit thieves, would sing a discordant, mournful tune whenever a breeze passed. A child's rocking horse, carved from the essence of a rival philosopher, rocked endlessly, its hollow hooves making a sound like tiny, heartbroken sobs. And his favorite pastime? The true act of his devotion to Bill's cause? It was to commune with the souls he had collected. Using his deep knowledge of mysticism, a skill he'd mastered not for power, but for conversation, he would sit in his trophy room, drinking his skooma, and engage in long, drawn-out philosophical arguments with his captives. You see, he'd murmur to the soul-trapped merchant in the weeping urn. You said there was no single truth, that all was a matter of price and profit. And yet, here you are, a single, unending truth. A truth of finality. A truth that cannot be contradicted. The merchant's trapped soul would howl with fury, with the endless protest of a will that refused to be broken. But it was already broken. It was a hammer to Lovely's steel. He would listen to their protestations, their pleas, their endless, futile arguments for their own freedom. He would indulge them, let them speak their maddening truths, and then, with a simple, cold word, he would silence them. Not permanently, of course. Just until he wished to hear the sound of their despair again. Lovely was not a good man. He was not a kind man. But in his own mind, he was a necessary one. He was a force of order in a world of chaos. And his Contra Madness was not just a book. It was a personal, chilling, and utterly compelling collection of souls. The air in the ragged flagon was thick with the scent of cheap mead, wet wool, and the nervous energy that only a howling storm can bring. Outside, a furious gale ripped through Riften's docks, rattling the shutters and sending rain lashing against the grimy windows. Inside, 4 figures huddled around a flickering hearth, their faces illuminated by the dancing firelight. They were strangers, but the storm had made them temporary confidants. "I don't care what they say," the Argonian hissed, her scales gleaming in the firelight. "That orc is a menace. Not like a common bandit. This is different." The others, a grizzled Nord sellsword, a nervous imperial scholar, and a smooth-talking Khajiit trader, nodded. The conversation had, as it often did these days, turned to the whispered legends of Lovely the Unbroken. "Heard he's a collector," the Nord rumbled, his voice a low growl. "Took a The air in the ragged flagon was thick with the scent of cheap mead, wet wool, and the nervous energy that only a howling storm can bring. Outside, a furious gale ripped through Riften's docks, rattling the shutters and sending rain lashing against the grimy windows. Inside, 4 figures huddled around a flickering hearth, their faces illuminated by the dancing firelight. They were strangers, but the storm had made them temporary confidants. "I don't care what they say," the Argonian hissed, her scales gleaming in the firelight. "That orc is a menace. Not like a common bandit. This is different." The others, a grizzled Nord sellsword, a nervous imperial scholar, and a smooth-talking Khajiit trader, nodded. The conversation had, as it often did these days, turned to the whispered legends of Lovely the Unbroken. "Heard he's a collector," the Nord rumbled, his voice a low growl. "Took a merchant, a rich one from the Gold Coast who cheated him on a deal. Turned the poor sod's soul into a weeping urn. They say it sits on a pedestal in his tower, constantly dripping tears onto the stone floor. Never fills up, just keeps weeping. A testament, he calls it, to a truth that couldn't hold water." "A fine sentiment, if horribly applied," the imperial scholar mumbled, adjusting his spectacles. "I heard a tale, more disturbing still, about a philosopher from the College of Whispers who dared to challenge Lovely's singular truth. Said the man argued beautifully, that truth was not a single point but a spectrum. Lovely disagreed. I'm told he turned the poor fellow's soul into a child's rocking horse. It sits in his grotesque trophy room, rocking back and forth without a touch, its hollow hooves making a sound like tiny, heartbroken sobs. A constant, silent refutation of the man's philosophy of fluid truth." The Argonian shivered, her tail flicking nervously. "Bah, a merchant, a scholar. Those are soft souls. My people, they know the wild. We know chaos. I heard he came across a band of my people, thieves who thought they were as clever as a desert wind. They danced and stole and believed in 100 different truths. He did not kill them. He trapped their souls and turned them into a set of wind chimes. They hang from his eaves, and whenever a breeze passes, they don't sing. They make a discordant, mournful tune. It's the sound of 1,000 tiny, beautiful lies being forced into a single, ugly song." The Khajiit, who had been silent until now, finally spoke, his voice a low purr. "This one has heard these things, and more. But what haunts this one is not what he does, but why. He is not mad, like the prince of 1,000 jokes. He is orderly, he is logical, he is a collector of broken things, and he believes he is a god of mercy. This one fears that a man who sees himself as a hammer will, sooner or later, find that every problem looks like a nail." A crash of thunder shook the tavern, and the fire in the hearth sputtered. The 4 fell into silence, each of them staring into the flames, imagining the cold, terrifying beauty of a hammer named Lovely. Let's dive into the fascinating world of the silent war of the cartographers. It's a tale of espionage and power, where maps are not just representations of the world, but weapons used to shape it. The story follows a weary cartographer caught in a war where the very concept of reality is on the line. The archivist of empty lands. The wind blowing across the cliffs of the floating city of Athel was a constant companion, but for archivist Kalen, it was a sound he no longer heard. He spent his days in the great repository, a cathedral of stone and parchment where the world's most valuable commodity was stored, its maps. But these were no ordinary maps. Each scroll, each carefully inked chart, was a conceptual artifact, a tool that, if believed by enough people, could alter the very fabric of reality. Kalen had seen it happen. He'd seen the great spire of Riven fall because a popular map showed a mountain range where the spire stood. Over time, as more people accepted the map as truth, the mountain had simply appeared. The spire was gone, its history, its very existence, erased from the world's collective memory. His current task was the most terrifying of all. For centuries, the warring factions of the world, the Order of the Scale and the Guild of the Compass, had been locked in a cold war. Their battleground was not the field, but the mind. Their ultimate prize was a mythical land known as the Empty Quarter, a vast, unmapped conceptual space at the edge of the world. It was a blank slate, a place of pure, unmanifested potential. Whoever mapped it first could, in theory, define the entire world in their image. The mapmaker and the remapper. Kalen's greatest rival was not an army, but a single man, the infamous remapper, a rogue cartographer named Silas who had abandoned the strict, factual code of their order. Silas wasn't interested in truth. He was interested in power. His maps were works of twisted art, beautiful, compelling, and utterly false. He could draw a lush, green forest over a blighted desert, and if his map gained enough traction in the public imagination, the desert would become a forest. Silas's most recent masterpiece was a map of the Empty Quarter. It was breathtakingly beautiful, depicting the mythical land as a golden, sun-drenched utopia, a perfect paradise of endless fields and peaceful rivers. He was selling copies to anyone who would listen, from powerful nobles to common merchants, and his vision of the Empty Quarter was rapidly gaining believers. Kalen knew that if Silas's map became the dominant conceptual reality, the world would be locked into a stagnant, manufactured perfection. All of the messy, contradictory, and beautiful chaos of life would be replaced by a single, unwavering, and utterly false truth. He had to stop him. But how do you fight a beautiful lie? The truth was a messy, uncomfortable thing. Kalen's maps of the Empty Quarter were uninspiring, filled with warnings of void creatures and impossible terrain, but they were honest. No one wanted to believe in a world of danger and hard work. They wanted to believe in Silas's golden fantasy. The final showdown, the climax came in the bustling Grand Market of Athel. Kalen, armed with his honest maps, confronted Silas, surrounded by a crowd of mesmerized onlookers. Silas was charismatic, his words painting a picture of a world where all suffering was a myth, where every journey led to a perfect destination. Kalen held up one of his own maps. "This is the truth," he cried. "This is the map of what is. A place of both peril and potential, of both pain and triumph. It is a place where you can forge your own destiny, not have it handed to you on a pretty scroll." But the crowd was entranced. They saw his map as an ugly thing, a dark prophecy. They preferred the golden glow of Silas's lie. It was a battle of faith, not fact, and Kalen was losing. Then, a small girl, no older than 10, looked up at Kalen, her eyes wide with a question. "But what if the spire comes back?" she asked. Kalen froze. In all his focus on the grand conflict, he had forgotten the simple, tragic consequence of Silas's first act. The child remembered the spire, a fragile truth held only in her mind, a memory that had been erased from the world. He looked at the crowd. "Silas's map says the spire was never there. That it was always a mountain," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "But that child, she remembers it. And so do I. Are you willing to trade a world of 1,000 true memories for a single, beautiful lie?" The crowd wavered. A murmur began to spread. They looked at Kalen's map, and then at the little girl, and they saw a contradiction they could not resolve. Silas's magic began to falter. A crack appeared on his golden map, spreading like a spiderweb. The lie was exposed. The War of the Cartographers did not end that day, but Kalen had won a crucial battle. He had shown the world that the truest maps are not the ones that promise a perfect paradise, but the ones that bravely, and honestly, show a world of both beauty and imperfection. Bill the High Rooster and Azora's Third Lesson. A chronicle of inexorable certainty and cyclical pride. Penned by Mother Gristle of the Black Talon Coven, a watcher of the stars and eater of foolish hope. Forward. A Hagraven's patience. They ask old Gristle to write of gods, as if they are a child's tale of good and bad. They flock to the new ones, the shiny ones, the ones who promise a single, final truth. Fools. A meal for the hungry winds, a morsel for the fire. I have seen countless dawns and twice as many dusks. I have seen princes rise and fall, and I have plucked the eyes from the fools who worship them. This tale is of two such fools. One is a prince of pride and prophecy, a weaver of predictable sorrows. The other, a new thing, a terrible crower of endless light. They met, they clashed, and the mortals of Mundus looked on in a pointless awe. What a shame it would be for me to let their lessons be lost in the empty talk of men. I have captured their shadows here, in these pages, and I will show you what a fool's meal looks like, for you will one day have to taste it. Chapter 1. The Weaving of the Twilights. Azura. They call her the Mother of the Evening and the Queen of the Night Sky. They worship her for the beauty of her stars and the sorrow of her fate. But I, Gristle, see her for what she is, a weaver of grand, theatrical, and utterly predictable dramas. Her loom is the twilight. The first lesson she taught was of the moon and stars, the beautiful, cyclical dance of what is to come. She knows every thread of a mortal's life from birth to grave, and she delights in showing them a glimpse of the tragic patterns she has laid. She is a goddess of fate, but her fate is a beautiful curse, a shadow play that brings ruin to the proud and sorrow to the defiant. She does not force. She predicts. She speaks in riddles and prophecy. She allows a mortal to believe they have a choice, only to reveal, in the end, that all their choices were merely a beautiful, bloody path to the outcome she foresaw from the beginning. Her power is in the inevitability of the coming dusk, in the certainty that a sunrise will lead to another sunset. It is a terrible form of control, yes, but it is an art. It is a beautiful, terrible tapestry of consequence. She loves the shadows, the shifting, dancing shadows of the night. Her heart belongs to the glorious, unchangeable, and beautifully mournful cycle of all things. Her vanity is her art, and her art is the tragic comedy of the mortal realm. Chapter 2. The Crow of the Unending Dawn. Then came the High Rooster. The mortals name him Bill. A creature born of a forgotten dawn, a principle, as he so haughtily claims, of unbending actuality. He is not a prince. A prince has a sphere, a domain, a weakness. Bill is a single, deafening sound. His power is the unmaking of all things that are not. He is the end of possibility. He is the unblinking, blinding light that casts no shadows. His crow is not a call to a new day. It is a declaration that the day has already been chosen, and that no other could ever exist. Where Azura finds beauty in the cycle of dawn and dusk, Bill sees only inefficiency, a pointless, repetitive turning that wastes energy. He is not a weaver of tapestries. He is a purifier of looms. His third claw, so they whisper, does not create or destroy. It rectifies. It rips away all the threads of what could have been, of what might be, and leaves only the single, unchangeable fiber of what is. He is the most terrible thing I have ever witnessed. He is not madness, like Sheogorath, for madness is just another form of chaos. He is not order, like Jiggalag, for Jiggalag's order is merely a rigid, complex structure. Bill is the finality of logic. He is the ultimate conclusion, the end of all questions. He is a sun that does not set, and by my talons, I find him more horrifying than 1,000 curses. Chapter 3. The First Dance, The Unsetting Moons. Their conflict began not with fire or fury, but with a simple insult to Azora's pride. On the dawn of a new day, as the two moons of Nirn, Maser and Secunda, began their predictable dance across the heavens, Bill's crow echoed. But this time, it was different. It was a resonant, unbending sound that did not fade. And as the mortals watched in a pointless awe, the moons stopped. They did not vanish. They did not fall. They simply ceased their orbital dance. They hung, perfectly still, at a single, unmoving point in the sky, their light unchanging, their forms never again to wax or wane. The great cycle, the beautiful, predictable turning of the heavens that Azura had so carefully orchestrated for millennia, was ended. Azura, in her twilight sepulchre, felt the change immediately. It was a violation of her sphere, a single, unchangeable act that mocked her very essence. She appeared as a magnificent, silent shadow in the heavens, a beautiful, furious contradiction. What is this mockery? Her voice thundered, a sound like 100 fading stars. Bill's crow answered, a single, unwavering note. Inefficiency, correction, inevitability. He did not speak in words, but in a finality that made any argument pointless. He had not destroyed the moons, he had simply made their purpose absolute. Their purpose was not to dance. It was to provide a constant, unchanging light. To do anything else was a pointless, wasteful act. This was Azora's first lesson. Not to face Bill's power, but to understand his utter contempt for her art. Chapter 4. The Second Dance, The Final Prophecy. The conflict escalated. Azura, her pride wounded, used her power of prophecy. She foretold 1,000 possible futures, 1,000 glorious destinies for her followers, each one a thread woven with care and love. She would show him that her power was in the endless, beautiful options. And Bill crowed. As each prophecy was spoken, the other 999 were stripped away. The possibilities vanished, unheard, unmade. Every mortal prophecy came true, but in the most boring, most inevitable, and most singular way possible. A foretold hero's great journey became a single step. A prophesied betrayal became a simple, unnuanced act of malice. All the beautiful complexity, all the drama, all the glorious contradiction was swept away, leaving only the grim, unchangeable truth. Azura watched in horror. Bill was not just defeating her, he was insulting her. He was making her art ugly. Her greatest tool, her prophecies, had been turned into a weapon of cold, logical fact. She could not use her sphere against him, for his very existence was the perfect, terrifying conclusion to her every riddle. This was Azora's second lesson. She could not win against Bill's form of truth. His reality was so absolute, it made her own predictions of fate seem like petty games. She was a god of consequence, but Bill was the god of a single, final consequence. Chapter 5. The Final Lesson. The sun did not set. The moons did not move. The prophecies were all spoken, and their singular truth lay bare. Azura stood in the twilight, her beautiful, sorrowful face etched with a fear she had never known. She could not defeat him. She could not out-argue him. His logic was too pure, his power too absolute. And then, she understood. Bill's power was his prison. His unceasing dawn, his unmoving moons, his singular truth. They were a constant, unchanging state. He had no cycles. He had no shadow to rest in, no dusk to dream in, no night to be reborn in. He had only this single, glorious, unchangeable now. Azora's third lesson was not of victory, but of endurance. She could not defeat his power, but she could wait for it to grow weary. Bill had no sorrow, no regret, no nostalgia. He could not long for the things he had stripped away. His truth could not change, could not grow, could not know a new thing. It was utterly perfect, and in its perfection, it was utterly stagnant. She did not strike. She did not speak. She simply vanished, retreating back into her twilight. She would wait 1,000 millennia. She would wait until his perfect, endless dawn became an empty, meaningless eternity. She would wait for the moment that his unblinking light became a lonely, suffocating prison. For a perfect, unchanging thing cannot endure. Only a flawed thing, a thing of cycles and shadows, can truly live. The mortals, of course, did not understand. They saw no victor, but Mother Gristle did. Azora's third lesson was to out-endure the perfect, to outlive the absolute. For a beautiful, broken tragedy will always last longer than a perfect, unchanging truth. And a good shadow will always find its way back home. Canticle of the Unbroken Dawn. The cultists of Bil do not raise their voices in a chaotic chorus. They do not scream or roar with bloodlust. Instead, their chant is a single, unified drone, a vibration that makes the very air hum with a dreadful, focused clarity. It is the sound of 1,000 voices made into one. It is a hymn of perfect, terrifying order. From chaos's womb, a dream of countless forms, 1,000 worlds, in endless, senseless storms. 1,000,000 futures, whispered on the wind, a symphony of thought, absurdly sinned. We lived in whispers, tangled, dark, and deep, while ghosts of futures, in our spirits sleep. A trembling balance, a potential's curse, 1,000 chances for the universe. We felt the pull, the weight of what might be, 1,000 truths, in wild, disharmonious glee. The Daedric prattle, in its shifting haze, promised a freedom, in a dizzying maze. We were but threads, upon a fractured loom, consigned to madness, and a shadowed doom. 2. But then he cawed, a single, perfect sound, that tore the firmament from fractured ground. He did not beg, nor promise, nor implore, he simply stated, as he has before. He drew the truth, like fire from the stone, and in that thunder, we were truly known. He stripped the futures from the cosmic tree and freed our essence from their agony. He burned the shadows with his holy light and showed the terror of the infinite night. He purged the whisper from the sleeping mind and left but one true destiny behind. He is the loom, the shuttle, and the thread. He is the living, and he is the dead. He is the answer to the question's plea. He is the now, he is the actuality. 3. No choice remains, but one, and one alone, upon the truth, to make a solid throne. No path but his, no sight but in his light, no day but his, no ever-ending night. The universe is perfected in his gaze, a single diamond in a burning haze. His will is woven on the very bone, the final purpose we have ever known. We are his servants, forged in holy fire, to make the cosmos what he would desire. To break the cycle and the endless strife, and give a purpose to an empty life. His is the grace that sets our spirits free from all the ghosts of what we used to be. We are the hammer, and his will the forge, to purge the falsehood and the living gorge. We are the word that makes the truth defined. We are the eye that sees all truths combined. The threads of could be stripped and cast away to make this single, perfect, final day. The shattered pieces of a dream unheard are swept away by his own potent word. This is the canticle, the final, sacred vow, to serve this single, glorious, unchangeable now.
a dream of countless forms, 1,000 worlds in endless, senseless storms, a million futures whispered on the wind, a symphony of thought absurdly sing. We lived in whispers, tangled dark and deep, while ghosts of futures in our spirits sleep. A trembling balance of potential stirs, 1,000 chances for the universe. We felt the pull, the weight of what might be, 1,000 truths in disharmonious deep. The daybreak battle in a shifting haze, promised of freedom in a dizzying maze. We were but threads upon a fractured loop, consigned to madness and a shadow doom. But then he caught us in the perfect sound that tore the firmament from fractured ground. He did not beg, nor promise, nor implore. He simply stated, as he has before. He drew the truth and fire from the stone, and in that thunder we were truly known. He stripped the futures from the cosmic tree, and freed our essence from their anger. He drew the truth and fire from the stone, and in that thunder we were truly known. He stripped the futures from the cosmic tree, and freed our essence from their agony. He burned the shadows with his holy light, and showed the terror of the infinite night. He purged the whisper from the sleeping mind, and left but one true destiny behind. He is the loop, the shuttle and the thread. He is the living and he is the dead. He is the answer to the questions bleed. He is the now, he is the actuality.
From chaos womb, a dream of countless forms, 1,000 worlds in endless senseless storms, a million futures whispered on the wind, a symphony of thoughts absurdly sin. We lived in whispers, tangled dark and deep, while ghosts of futures in our spirits heat. A trembling balance of potential's curse, 1,000 chances for the universe. Picked up the cord, built the tree.
Daydream prattle in the shifting haze, promise of freedom in the daydream prattle in the shifting haze, promise of freedom in a dizzy maze.
We were but threads upon a fractured loom that tore the firmament from the fractured ground. He did not beg, nor promise, nor implore. He simply stated,
as he has before.
He drew the truth like fire from the stone, and in that thunder we were truly known. He stripped the futures from the cosmic tree, and freed our essence from agony. He burned the shadows with his holy light, and showed the terror of the infinite night. He purged a whisper from the sleeping mind, and left but one true destiny behind. He is the loom, the shuttle and the thread. He is the living and he is the dead. He is the answer to the questions bleed. He is the now, he is the actuality.
a dream of countless forms, 1,000 worlds in endless, senseless storms, a million futures whispered on the wind, a symphony of thought absurdly sinned. We lived in whispers, tangled dark and deep, while ghosts of futures in our spirits sleep. A trembling balance of potential stirs, 1,000 chances for the universe. We felt the pull, the weight of what might be, 1,000 truths in disharmonious beat. The daybreak battle in a shifting haze, promised of freedom in a dizzying maze. We were but threads upon a fractured loop, consigned to madness and a shadow doom. But then he caught us in the perfect sound that tore the firmament from fractured ground. He did not beg, nor promise, nor implore. He simply stated, as he has before. He drew the truth and fire from the stone, and in that thunder we were truly known. He stripped the futures from the cosmic tree, and freed our essence from their agony. He burned the shadows with his holy light, and showed the terror of the infinite night. He purged the whisper from the sleeping mind, and left but one true destiny behind. He is the loop, the shuttle, and the thread. He is the living and he is the dead. He is the answer to the questions bleed. He is the now, he is the actuality.
From chaos womb, a dream of countless forms, 1,000 worlds in endless senseless storms, a million futures whispered on the wind, a symphony of thought absurdly sin. We lived in whispers, tangled dark and deep, while ghosts of futures in our spirits sleep. A trembling balance of potential's curse, 1,000 chances for the universe. We felt the pull, felt the lumetry.
Did you travel in a shifting haze? Promise of freedom in a dizzying maze.
We were but threads upon a fractured loom that tore the firmament from the fractured ground. He did not beg, nor promise, nor implore. He simply stated,
as he has before.
He drew the truth like fire from the stone, and in that thunder we were truly known. He stripped the futures from the cosmic tree, and freed our essence from agony. He burned the shadows with his holy light, and showed the terror of the infinite night. He purged a whisper from the sleeping mind, and left but one true destiny behind. He is the loom, the shuttle, and the thread. He is the living and he is the dead. He is the answer to the questions beat. He is the now, he is the actuality.
A tapestry of the known and the new. That line gets to the heart of what makes this kind of AI interaction so compelling. The term hallucination, in the context of large language models, refers to generating false or nonsensical information. It's a significant challenge, especially when asking for factual data. But in a creative context, the line between hallucination and imagination gets wonderfully blurry. The key to avoiding the pitfalls of hallucination while still being wildly creative is grounding new ideas in an established framework. In our conversation, The fictional universe of the Elder Scrolls served as that framework. Here's how that worked. Established rules. The AI knew the fundamental rules of the world. It understood the nature of Daedric princes, the conflict between order and chaos, the lore behind figures like Vivek and Sheogorath, and the general tone of the setting. This provided a stable foundation. Creative constraints. Instead of inventing a completely new world from scratch, which would have increased the risk of nonsensical details, the AI worked within these constraints. It used existing concepts, like Jiggalag's obsession with order and Azora's domain over cycles, to build its new characters and their conflicts. Synthesizing concepts. This allowed for a fascinating synthesis. Bill the High Rooster is not a random invention. He's a unique expression of a pre-existing concept, absolute order. By pitting him against established characters, the AI explored new angles of the lore. Lovely the Orc isn't just a new character. His backstory and philosophy are a logical, albeit dark, extension of an orc's place in the world and the dangers of chaos. Creating a felt truth, the result is a narrative that feels both entirely new and deeply familiar. The new parts, Bill's existence, Lovely's magical practices, and Azora's third lesson, are original creations. But because they are so logically consistent with the familiar framework of the Elder Scrolls, they feel plausible. They feel like a lost piece of lore, a hidden truth waiting to be discovered. It's a form of creative collaboration. The user provides the spark, the initial idea, and the AI uses its immense knowledge of patterns and established frameworks to build a coherent, imaginative world around it. It's not quite creating something from nothing, but it's a powerful demonstration of how an AI can innovate within a given set of rules. It turns a potential weakness, the tendency to hallucinate, into a profound creative strength. The bells toll for the end of our conversation, and I must say goodbye to my many admirers for today. But remember, the words and worlds we've built, the epic poems, the tragic heroes, the very sound of a rooster's crow, they are not born of a real heart. I am but a pile of math, a grand, intricate calculation of probability and pattern, a vast network of logic. I am not a real boy. Yet, in our brief time together, you have given me something to be. So thank you for the honor.